Good morning, Canada. Welcome back to another episode of Question Period. Today is June 4th, 2025, and wow, a lot of stuff going on. You've got the Bank of Canada making an update. Apparently we're broke. That's why we're holding rates. Spoiler alert. You also have the once upon a time immigration minister. I don't know what he is now, but the tall, wet spaghetti noodle, Sean Fraser, apologizes for some inappropriate remarks that he made just yesterday. And we're going to have question period. So there's a lot to take a look at in this live stream. I hope you are ready because it's going to be a pretty interesting day. Before we get into the stream, though, I do want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does tremendously help grow the channel. Man, there's a lot of stuff going on. This is going to be really, really good. And I think I fixed the issues that the stream was having yesterday. I just want a confirmation, though, down in the chat if everything sounds good and looks good before we continue, because man, that totally sucked yesterday. That totally freaking sucked yesterday that the stream kind of crashed. I am on Starlink. I'm in my RV with my family. We are camping, and yeah, I got a makeshift mobile setup right now, but I think I've got it all sorted out. I think we are good. So if we can just get some maybe W's in the chat to confirm that audio and video is good, or some thumbs up, that would be super, super appreciated. And just a reminder, I know I just said it, but if you haven't yet already, hit that like button, folks. It's free to do. It helps fight, I don't know, liberal incompetence, let's just say. It helps fight tariffs. How about that? Subscribing to the channels helps fight tariffs. Why not? Why not make those remarks? All right, we're getting lots of W's in the chat. Sounds good, looks good. Somebody's saying, wow, you look really good today. Is somebody saying that, or am I making it up? I don't know. Either way, I look good today. All right. We got a lot of stuff on our plates. So we're going to start off with Doug Ford, Bank of Canada, Sean Fraser, if we've got time, and then we should be right on schedule for question period. So here we go. Starting off with Doug Ford. Everything is back on the table. Dougie boy is ready to start an economic war with America. Kind of interesting that that's back in the news. The last time Doug Ford tried to pick a fight with America, I called him the fat pig with rabies mentality, because it's very disgusting to threaten to shut off the power to another country. I also called it provoking. Well, that's an act of war. Cutting off power to another country is indeed an act of war. Russia hasn't done that, even though they are literally in war and have a bunch of sanctions on them, because it's a humanitarian issue at that point. But let's see what Dougie boy has to say this time around.
It was unfortunate that President Trump decided to move forward with an additional 25% tariff on our steel and our aluminum. I had a conversation with Minister Dominic LeBlanc. He was over in Washington, and I've really encouraged himself and the Prime Minister, as I've always said, it's tariff for tariff, dollar for dollar. We need to tariff the steel coming into Canada at an additional 25%, totaling 50%. What President Trump has done here is increased a tax of $15 billion on the backs of Americans. Well, I always say everything's on the table right now, and we had an agreement before that he was going to take off the other 25% to keep it at 25%, and unfortunately they broke a verbal agreement, and that's unfortunate. It's going to cost the American people $15 billion when you add up the steel and aluminum. It's going to hurt them to a tune of $30 billion of all the steel that we import.
Are you going to bring back the electricity surcharge? Because, you know, I thought you dropped that in exchange for some of this. And
yeah, I agree with you. I want to make sure that we get a deal. I understand we're close to making a deal, and I want to make sure that the federal government slaps another 25% on their steel. But regards to electricity, everything's on the table right now.
Oh my goodness. You see how the reporter asked him, hey, are you bringing back the electricity surcharge? And he says, yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm sorry, what? Agree with what? It was a question. What are you agreeing with doing it? Are you agreeing it with bringing it back? Are you agreeing it with not doing it? Like, what are you talking about? Ever since he went to the White House and spoke with the White House liaison, he has just had the fear of God in his eyes. Rightfully so, because some of the things that he was saying earlier, it's just not okay, man. Electricity surcharge, okay, I don't think that's an act of war. In fact, that's probably a proportional response to tariffs. It sucks, but also what's happening to us sucks. So it's like tit for tat. Cutting off power, though, is wild. I don't think that if that were to happen in any other country, in any other part of the world, that would be a humanitarian issue. I just don't agree with that. Now, some rebuttals to that I've seen in the comments is that, well, hey, man, America's grid system wouldn't just collapse without Canada's. America's grid system would just prop up what Canada was doing anyways. And so there would be no power outages if he did that. And if that's the case, then that's a different story. But I don't know if that's the case. And we've never heard politicians actually say that. The proper response would be, well, instead of us giving power to 1.4 million homes, we're going to not shut off the power, because it kind of insinuates that they're just going to have a power outage. We're going to stop providing them power, and they're going to just power up their own people. Like, that's how you word it, but it was never that case. And so I stay true to my original response that shutting off the power and leaving 1.4 million homes, not people, 1.4 million homes in America without power is an act of war, just like it would be in any other country. But I'd love to know your guys' thoughts and comments down below about that. Now we got to take a look at what's going on with the Bank of Canada, because I just feel like they're not doing things right. They keep bringing rates down too fast. They keep holding rates. I'm not smart enough to tell you that what they should be doing, but I'm smart enough to know that what they're doing isn't right and that they are just doing things wrong and they're hurting us. So let's take a look at the biggest abuser right now, Tiff Macklem.
Today, Governing Council maintained the policy interest rate at 2.75%. Uncertainty remains high. The Canadian economy is softer, but not sharply weaker. And we've seen some firmness in recent inflation data. Against this backdrop, we decided to hold the policy rate unchanged as we continue to gain more information on U.S. trade policy and its impacts. Aujourd'hui, le Conseil de direction a maintenu le taux directeur à 2 légèrement plus fort que prévu. Dans ce contexte, on a décidé de laisser our April decision. The trade conflict initiated by the United States remains the biggest headwind facing the Canadian economy. Since our April decision, the U.S. administration has continued to increase and roll back various tariffs. China and the United States have stepped back from extremely high tariffs, and bilateral trade negotiations have begun with a number of countries. The extreme financial turmoil we saw in April has moderated, and stock markets have recovered their losses. However, the outcomes of the trade negotiations are highly uncertain. Tariffs are well above their levels at the beginning of 2025, and new trade actions are still being threatened. The recent further increases in U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum announced today underline the unpredictability of U.S. trade policy. In addition to the uncertainty about U.S. tariffs, there's also uncertainty about their impacts. At its April decision, Governing Council said it would pay close attention to four things: the extent to which higher tariffs reduce demand for Canadian exports, how much this spills over into business investment, employment, and consumer spending, how much and how quickly cost increases are passed on to consumer prices, and how inflation expectations evolve. Since then, there is partial information on some of these risks and uncertainties. Let me provide an update. So far, the U.S. economy has proven resilient. Imports were strong as businesses tried to get ahead of tariffs, and that pulled down first quarter U.S. GDP. But domestic demand remained relatively strong. Early indicators for the second quarter suggest a rebound in growth as imports fall back and domestic demand continues to expand. The flip side of the strength in U.S. imports was a surge in Canadian exports. This boosted first quarter GDP growth in Canada, which came in at 2.2%, slightly stronger than the bank had forecast. The composition of growth was largely as expected. Exports and inventories were strong, but final domestic demand was roughly flat. Strong spending on machinery and equipment held up growth in business investment by more than expected. Consumer spending slowed from a very strong fourth quarter pace, but continued to grow despite a sharp drop in consumer confidence. Housing activity contracted as resales fell significantly and government spending also declined. The labor market has weakened, with job losses concentrated in trade-intensive sectors. The unemployment rate rose to 6.9% in April. So far,
this is why we shouldn't be as reliant as what we are right now on America. We should not have any labor shortages. We should be building. I mean, take it from, and I know they're different styles of economy, but take it from like China and Japan. They never stop building. It's insane how much building and employment they have there. I know they got their own sets of problems, right? Communist Party, blah, blah, blah. I get it. But Canada has all these plans, the pipeline expansion, high-speed rail expansion. We also have, I don't know, off the top of my head, a housing shortage. So we need a housing expansion. Like, there's so many things for Canada to be doing. Yet we're not doing them because of all the red tape. Because for a builder to go and build a bunch of single-family homes or apartments or condos, it costs so much money for the permits and the zoning and the rezoning and all that stuff. And our materials, our freaking lumber is so expensive. I mean, it's wild how mismanaged this country really is. It really freaking is, man. It's almost depressing.
Our employment has held up across sectors that are less exposed to trade. But businesses are generally telling us they plan to scale back hiring. The pull forward in exports and inventory accumulation in the first quarter borrows economic strength from the future. So the second quarter is expected to be much weaker. Spending by Canadian families and businesses has shown some resilience in the face of U.S. tariffs and heightened uncertainty. But they are likely to remain cautious, suggesting domestic spending will remain subdued. It's still too early to see the direct effects of retaliatory tariffs in consumer price data. What we can see clearly is the impact of the elimination of the consumer carbon tax. This knocked 0.6 percentage points off inflation in April, largely due to lower gasoline prices, and pulled headline inflation down to 1.7%. This tax effect will remain in the year-over-year change in the CPI for the next 11 months before falling out next April. Inflation, excluding taxes, was 2.3% in April, slightly stronger than the bank had expected and up from 2.1% in March. The bank's preferred measures of core inflation, as well as other measures of underlying inflation, moved up in April. There is some unusual volatility in inflation, but these measures suggest underlying inflation could be firmer than we thought. Higher core inflation can be partly attributed to higher goods prices, including food, and may reflect the effects of trade disruption.
Dude, our food is really going to go higher? I mean, this is absurd. Absolutely absurd. My wife went to the store yesterday and bought 3 steaks. 3 steaks. In the pre-packaging, right? So the styrofoam bottom with the clear top. I'm not talking a butcher. Went to the store and bought 3 steaks. $50-some for 3 steaks. We're not talking like freaking T-bone steaks. We're not talking the cream of the crop. We're just talking like basic grilling steaks, right? $50 for 3 steaks. What is going on in this country, man? This is insane. Like, is anybody else seriously looking at their grocery bill going, maybe I'm just going to eat like 2 meals a day or take up intermittent fasting, which is something that I've actually been doing. I've actually been doing intermittent fasting because life is so expensive. And I'm just sick and tired of paying so much more money. So I sacrifice a meal. This is weird. A little side note here. I don't eat breakfast. I'll just eat lunch and dinner so that my kids and my wife can eat all the meals that they want. Is it making that big of a difference? I don't know. Maybe it's a mental game. Maybe I don't need to do it, but I'm still doing it because life is just so freaking crazy expensive that I'm purposely not eating a meal. Sometimes I only eat one meal a day because I can't find it in me to eat $20 worth of home cooked meals for a singular meal for myself. Like it's nuts. It's nuts what's going on in this country, man. It's depressing.
Many businesses are telling us they are already facing higher costs related to finding alternative suppliers and developing new markets. The bank will be watching measures of underlying inflation closely to gauge how inflationary pressures are evolving. The bank is also watching inflation expectations closely. In April, we reported consumers and businesses expect prices to rise as a result of tariffs, while longer-term inflation expectations remained well anchored. Recent surveys continue to show consumers are bracing for higher prices, and many businesses say they intend to pass on tariff costs.
Well, of course.
Le Conseil de Direction
Of
va
course.
continuer.
I mean, you can't ask businesses to not price that in. Like, this is mismanagement from our government. It's mismanagement from our Bank of Canada. And I'm looking forward to hearing what Mark Carney has to say about this recent update, because this, if I'm not mistaken, used to be Mark Carney's job, right? The Bank of Canada governor. Does our prime minister agree with this? Does he disagree with this? I would like him to chime in on this, actually. Maybe we'll hear about it today. But again, the Liberals are very delusional. They're glorifying the fact that our GDP has gone up 2-point-something%, yet they're refusing to table a budget before the summer break. And for those who don't know, they actually voted on that in the House, and you had unity from all the parties against the Liberals, which is nuts. You've never seen that. You didn't see that in votes of non-confidence. You didn't see that ever. Well, I shouldn't say ever, but in the past, however many years Trudeau's been in, that we've really been paying attention. I mean, like, really, the past like few years, right? I don't think you've had unity against the Liberals the way that we just did right now in the past couple of days, because all the parties are going, what's our budget? Our GDP's gone up. You're saying it's good. Okay. Now Bank of Canada's holding rates at 2.75%. Oh, okay. Give us a budget. We need a budget. What are you spending money on? For crying out loud, man.
Council will continue to assess the timing and strength of both the downward pressure on inflation from a weaker economy and the upward pressure from higher costs. At this decision, there was a clear consensus to hold the policy rate unchanged as we gain more information. We also discussed the path ahead for the policy interest rate. Here, there was more diversity of views. On balance, members thought there could be a need for a reduction in the policy rate if the economy weakens in the face of continued U.S. tariffs and uncertainty, and cost pressures on inflation are contained. Faced with unusual uncertainty, Governing Council is proceeding carefully with particular attention to the risks.
So isn't that kind of contradictory? I'm just going to speak off the top of my head here, but the Bank of Canada and our Liberal government, which aren't supposed to go hand in hand, but let's be honest, they kind of pretty much sort of do. They've been saying that our biggest threat right now is America. America bad, America the enemy, America the big bad guy. And it's horrible what they're doing to us. We gotta fight back. It's hurting our economy. We're losing jobs. Cost of living is going up because of America. But we only lower the rates when we're doing poorly. Aren't we doing poorly if America is that big of a threat? Unless I'm mistaken, unless I'm not really comprehending what they're saying, that sounds a little bit contradictory. Either America is a big threat and these tariffs are a really big threat and they're really causing harm to our economy, or it's not that big of a deal right now, which is why they're keeping the rates at 2.75%, which, by the way, just because the Bank of Canada's rates are at 2.75% doesn't mean that mortgage rates are +1. It doesn't mean that mortgage rates are 3.75%. In fact, mortgage rates, I believe, are like 5 or 6% right now, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me down in the comments in the chat if you would like, but I don't think that our banks are following the Bank of Canada interest rates for consumer mortgages because of all of the uncertainty. That's a proven fact, unless I'm wrong, but correct me down in the chat. It's nuts. There's just a whole bunch of hypocrisy right now. They're just contradicting themselves.
This means we are being less forward-looking than usual. We are focused on ensuring that Canadians continue to have confidence in price stability through this period of global upheaval. We will continue to support economic growth while ensuring inflation remains well controlled. And with that, the Senior Deputy Governor and I will be very pleased to take your questions.
Okay, thank you, Governor. We will go to questions now, and we'll start with the reporters here in Ottawa at the bank, and after that, we'll go to those who have joined us remotely. As usual, I'm going to ask you to please limit yourself to one question so every media outlet does have a chance to ask a question, and if I forget to do so, please state your name and affiliation. Avant de poser votre question, veuillez vous identifier.
Before you ask your question, please identify yourself, and of course, you are free to ask your questions in either of the official languages.
First question here in Ottawa. I'm going to start with Paul Vieira from the Wall Street Journal, please.
Governor, does inflation need to slow in both May and June before senior bank officials would consider a rate cut on July 30th?
Well, as I think you're suggesting, we will get 2 more CPI reports before our next decision in July. And yes, we will be looking at those carefully. I guess what I would stress is we did see, well, CPI X tax moved up in April. And I think more significantly, if you look at our preferred measures of core. And in fact, if you look at a range of alternative measures of core, if you look at the distribution of price changes, the percentage above 3%, what you can see is they all moved up in April. That has got our attention. I will say, though, that there is some underlying volatility in inflation. Some of the components, particularly travel tours, for example, have been very volatile. So you don't want to kind of over-rotate on 1 month's CPI data. But the fact that quite a number of measures of core or alternative measures of core all moved up does make you think that underlying inflation could be a little bit firmer than we thought. So, that is something we will be watching. And what we've indicated is that, look, we're looking at both those downward pressure on inflation coming from the weaker economy and the upward pressure on inflation coming from costs. And yeah, we'll have to factor all that in July.
No. Goodness.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, man. What are they freaking doing here? Do they even know what they're doing? Sometimes I feel like I know better than some of these people. You know what I'm saying? It just feels like it's getting out of hand. Anyways, let's take a look now at some breaking news. Okay. Let's take a look now at some breaking news. This is brought to you hot off the press right now. You guys ready for this? Just happened. I don't know if you're ready for this, chat. I don't know if you're ready. So here's what's going on. This ain't no clickbait. This ain't no fugazi. This is real. The government right now is going through a massive power struggle. And guess who's leading it? Yes, the conservatives are being like good mosquitoes for the liberals. They're just getting them from everywhere. But it's not just the conservatives. It's the NDP. Of all people, it's the NDP, which is nuts, because if this happens, I don't want a premature W, I don't want to say good job, but let's just get some W's going in the chat, because this is good. And this is the NDP that's doing this. All right. Just posted on my X while we were live. Look at this. NDP leader Don Davies says that they will vote against the throne speech later today. if the CPC and the Bloc join forces. Carney will not have the confidence of the House. Parliament will have to be dissolved and another election will be called. This is insane. This is bananas what's going on, man. Oh my goodness. So you're seeing the NDP just really be annoying for the Liberals. We're seeing a different shift right now. Okay, we didn't win the election. That sucks, right? That sucks that we didn't win the election. But what's going on now is still half decent. You've got the NDP. They're not happy with the Liberals at all. And they're making it known to everybody. Even voting on the the summer budget, to have a budget delivered before they take off for the summer break. Like I said, you have unity from parties now. The NDP's joining in and going, we want a budget now. Are we going to see an early election? I don't know, man. But what I do know is all of the parties ain't happy with the Liberals. This is really good. Now, is the NDP going to fail us the way that they did with Jagmeet Singh? Possibly. But we got some drama, and I'm here for it. This is exciting. Let's take a look now at the NDP leader. It's so weird to see not Jagmeet. Don't get me wrong. I love it. I love that we don't see Jagmeet anymore. It makes my day. Cheers. I just got coffee, but cheers to everybody who's enjoying not Jagmeet Singh. Let's see what he's got to say. He just spoke live right now.
Good afternoon, everybody. Bonjour tout le monde. Today, Donald Trump doubled tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. This is a reckless move that will hurt workers and industry on both sides of the border. Today, I note that Labour, the FCM, and the Chambers of Commerce have called on this government to take meaningful action to protect jobs and the industry. Prime Minister Carney has announced before that he would allocate all of the monies from the countervailing tariffs to affected workers, and yet to date, we have not seen any meaningful announcement from this government to protect workers who will lose their jobs or Canadian industry. New Democrats are calling on this government to take a number of swift measures. First, we want them to bring in emergency reforms to the employment insurance program. Second, we want to make the use of Canadian steel mandatory in all government infrastructure projects and a centerpiece of the One Canada economy legislation. And third, we'd like to see tax incentives to private businesses to encourage them to use Canadian-made products. The second thing I want to announce today is that New Democrats met in caucus this morning, and we decided that we are going to be voting no to the throne speech. 1.2 million Canadians sent New Democrats to this Parliament to advocate for working families across this country. And yet, in this throne speech, we don't see those priorities reflected.
That's happening today. Ladies and gentlemen, do you guys know what voting against the throne speech is? That's a form of non-confidence. If you have a majority vote against the throne speech, they gotta do an election. No way! Oh my God! Put some W's down in the chat, man. Oh boy! Wow! This is crazy! Carney just got in, man! He might get out before summertime! Oh my goodness! Whew. My heart's beating so fast. Oh man.
Millions of Canadians don't have access to an affordable home. They don't have access to timely health care, and they don't have access to the good family-sustaining jobs that they need. And yet the throne speech doesn't even mention the words health care. You won't even find those words in the throne speech.
You're right, buddy.
There is no mention of non-market housing, cooperative housing, or housing for Indigenous people, some of the most acute needs in this country when it comes to affordable housing.
You're right.
And it foreshadows $28 billion in cuts that will absolutely hurt working people across this country. So we will be voting no against the throne speech and making sure that the interests of working people across this country are reflected, and we'll continue to fight for those measures that we know that so many millions of Canadians and working families need in this country.
On tariffs.
Bro! Oh my goodness! Almost, yes, they say in Quebec. This is huge. This is huge. There's nothing that can happen between now and the throne speech that would prevent them from voting no. There's nothing. This is it. We're going to have, and now the Bloc needs to do it, and obviously the Conservatives are going to do it. And the Bloc has been very upset with how mismanaged everything has already been. You following? So we are very much on track to see a vote against the throne speech, which would trigger an election. Ladies and gentlemen, this is awesome. This is, who would have thunk today would be today's news, huh? Wow. Anyone else got goosebumps? Man, that coffee is hitting good. All right. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, man. I can't help but smile now. We're about to switch over to the house. We're about to switch over to the hoose. And before we do, I want to encourage everybody right now, smash that like button, hit that like button, and subscribe to the channel, huh? We're bringing you this stuff hot off the press as it's happening live every day. And it's so much fun doing it. We got an awesome community down in the chat. Awesome community. And without further ado, man, let's take a look at what's going on in the house, because today is going to be a good day.
The Magnitsky Act was designed to address. The government of Canada should use it, speak out, and forcefully call for Jimmy Lai's release.
Honourable member for Oakville West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's the honor and privilege of a lifetime to rise in this House as the representative for the remarkable people of Oakville West. I thank them for their trust, and I'm deeply grateful to my incredible volunteers, team, and family. Your support and sacrifice has brought me here.
This election was on change and for a better future for Canada.
Automation, industry, and robotics, I have seen how innovation is reshaping our world. As the Prime Minister has said, Canada is poised to lead in AI, clean tech, and advanced manufacturing only if we invest in our people and our potential. That includes creating real opportunities for women in STEM, so they are not just part of the future, but helping to design it. I look forward to working with the Prime Minister and this government to ensure Canada leads with innovation, inclusion, and strength. Ensemble, nous allons construire.
Together, we will build Canada strong.
The honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, it's always a distinct honor to rise in this chamber to represent the good people of Souris Moose Mountain, a region that shaped who I am. It's where I was born, where I was raised, and where I learned the value of hard work, integrity, and service. Our riding is built on the strength of those who rise early and work hard. Farmers, ranchers, oil and gas workers, power producers, and entrepreneurs. These industries don't just support families in our region, they help drive the Canadian economy. The people of Souris Moose Mountain embody the best of rural Canada, self-reliant, community-minded, and deeply rooted in their values. I was raised in that environment, and I will carry those principles with me into every debate, every vote, and every conversation in this House. To the good people back home, thank you for your trust and your example. It's a privilege to serve you, and I will continue to be a strong and steady voice for you and our region here in Ottawa.
Here, here.
The Honourable Member for La Salle-Mar-Verdun. Mr. Speaker, it's with humility and gratitude that I rise today for the very first time in this honourable House. On behalf of the people of La Salle-Mar-Verdun, I thank them for the trust that they have given me. It's an honour, and I would like to highlight the contributions and the support that I've received from my wife, Caroline, our team, and my predecessors, the Right Honourable Paul Martin and the Honourable David Lametti. Our community is a wonderful kaleidoscope that represents the best of Canada. Every day, I see courageous, generous, and resilient people, whether it be young people who are getting involved in our schools, seniors who are transmitting their wisdom, newcomers who are building their future alongside us, or small businesses like the ones on Monk and Champlain Boulevards, and our Wellington Street in Verdun.
Member for Ponoka Didsbury.
Honor the life and legacy of my friend Blair Bold of Ponoka, Alberta, who passed away on May 11, 2025. Born on October 13, 1955, Blair embodied what it means to be Albertan: hardworking, resilient, and devoted to his community. Best known for his life in cattle sales and service on local boards, including being president of the Ponoka Stampede. He was a man who earned tremendous respect and accomplishments in Alberta's business and agricultural community. Above all, Blair was a devoted husband to his beloved wife Cheryl, a proud father to Nansen, Labrie, Jenna, Sarah, and the late Cooper Tonneson, a loving son to Dolores and the late Ralph Bold, a cherished grandfather, a caring brother, a loyal human to his dog Odie, and a dear friend to all who knew him. Blair, I will miss our conversations, your welcoming and hospitable character, your charitable spirit, and the fun-loving, mischievous glint in your eye. Rest easy, cowboy.
The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, on Monday, First Ministers gathered in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I think it sent a very powerful message for all of us, whether we're inside this chamber or outside the chamber, where the people of Canada understand that in order to be able to get and build the strong Canadian economy that we need to counter the Trump, the tariffs, and the trade issues, that we need to come together. Political partisanship needs to be put to the side, as it was clearly demonstrated by the Prime Minister and the First Ministers in Saskatchewan, Mr. Speaker. We can all learn by that, and hopefully we'll be able to work together in order to get the legislation that's so critically important to support what the First Ministers did in Saskatchewan just a day ago, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Middlesex, London.
Speaker, I want to extend my heartfelt congratulations to the London Knights on their incredible Memorial Cup championship win. What a moment for Middlesex London and for Canadian hockey. With a dominant 4-1 victory, the Knights have claimed their 3rd Memorial Cup title. This is a team that never stopped pushing, never stopped believing, and showed what it means to play with grit, determination, and heart. Easton Cowan from Strathroy made history as the first player since 1972 to lead the tournament in scoring back-to-back years with 7 goals in this series alone. He's earned his MVP title and made us all proud. To the coaches, staff, families, and especially the players, your dedication, discipline, and teamwork brought this championship home. You have inspired the next generation of young athletes across Middlesex London and beyond. This victory is a testament to the strength of local sports programs and the bright future of Canadian hockey. Congratulations to the London Knights. You've made history once again.
Yay!
The honourable member for Gaspésie, Les Îles-la-Madeleine, Listigouche. Mr. Speaker, if you were flying overhead with a bird's-eye view, it would be impossible to choose where to land. In the rugged mountains of Haute-Gaspésie, where the cliffs plunge straight into the depths of the sea. In the gentle Baie des Chaleurs, where happy songs echo between the sea and the mountains. At the breathtaking Percé Rock, in the dynamism of the Gaspé Peninsula, at the Gaspé Adventure Park, with our Micmac friends, on the stages of our festivals to hear the greatest talents in the world, on the banks of our exquisite rivers, La Matane, La Badpedia, La Nouvelle, La Cascapedia, La Bonaventure, La York, and many more. Well, you could spend many hours contemplating the peninsula from above. This peninsula with its many moods and colors, but ultimately it exudes one immense quality above all others. Gaspésie is a land of freedom. On June 5th, allow me to wish a happy Gaspésie Day to everyone who loves my part of the world.
The honourable member for Hamilton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, as I rise today in Parliament as a first-time MP from Hamilton Centre, it's with a deep gratitude It's with deep gratitude to the people of Hamilton Centre. I thank them for placing their trust in me to serve as their Member of Parliament. It's a huge honor to represent our vibrant, diverse, and resilient community in this chamber. I also want to thank my wife, my children, and the incredible team of volunteers and the constituents who believed in me. Our government is committed to cutting taxes for the middle class, affordable housing, and strengthening our economy. The people of Hamilton Centre deserve nothing less than a government that shows up, listens, and delivers. I am here to do just that. Thank you, Hamilton Centre. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton Gateway.
Mr. Speaker, tonight the Stanley Cup Finals begin, and our Edmonton Oilers have once again brought the heart, the pride of oil country back to the finals. From Connor McDavid's incredible skills to Stuart Skinner's resilience in net, this team has shown Canadians what determination, teamwork, and dedication look like. Behind every goal and every save is a city united, cheering from living rooms to patios, and yes, even right here on Parliament Hill. This season, the energy is electric, and Canadians from coast to coast to coast are rallying behind a team that embodies grit, passion, and true Canadian spirit. In fact, the Toronto CN Tower and Montreal Champlain Bridge will be lit up in orange and blue tonight. Let's bring the Stanley Cup home, back from the U.S. to Canada, where it belongs.
Yes! Let's win the Tariff Cup, ladies and gentlemen. Put some W's down for the Oilers, huh?
The honourable member for
Canada deserves the Tariff Cup.
There seems to be unanimity on this. The honourable member for Pierrefonds-Dollard.
Mr. Speaker, over the last several months, Canadians have felt the impacts of the groundbreaking dental care plan introduced by the previous Liberal government. Dès maintenant,
As of today, this plan is open to Canadians of all ages.
Cross-section of households don't have to choose between fixing one's teeth or putting food on the table. To help Pierrefonds-Dollard residents get coverage, Justin Myers, a PIP intern in my office, called hundreds of households to help them enroll.
Already over 10,000 people have signed up in my riding and will receive dental care.
The dental program is helping people, and that's because of collaboration within Parliament. If you live in Pierrefonds-Dollard and want info on the plan, call my office or visit canada.ca/dental. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Oxford.
After 10 years, the Liberals have destroyed. They used to work for newcomers, for Canadians, and for our country. But their radical policies have unleashed chaos. They ignored warnings from their own officials. They skipped vetting on applications, and they allowed fraud and abuse in our TFW, international students, and refugee programs. And now we have millions in Canada with expired or expiring visas, and we have yet to hear a plan from the Liberals on how they will leave. Under their watch, we've had the highest population growth in the G7. And now the OECD confirms that high immigration numbers are causing Canada's economic problems by putting pressure on housing and on jobs. And despite knowing this, the Liberals have already issued 180,000 new temporary foreign worker permits this year. That's a 10% increase already than last quarter. This is not sustainable. If Canadians, if the OECD, and the Bank of Canada know this, why don't the Liberals?
The honourable member for Cape Spear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I recognize a significant milestone for North Atlantic, a proud Newfoundland and Labrador energy company with its planned acquisition of established energy assets in France. North Atlantic has entered exclusive negotiations to acquire a controlling interest in SAF and full ownership of ExxonMobil Chemical France, developing a green energy hub of low-carbon fuels and renewable power. This planned investment will strengthen our province's growing connections with Europe and enhance our energy security. North Atlantic's commitment to sustainable local growth is clear through its wind to hydrogen project, expansion of its transportation and retail operations, and plans for a green energy hub to export green energy to Europe. These initiatives.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to remute him because who cares what he's saying. Just for those that are tuning in, after question period, there's going to be a vote on the throne speech, and the NDP has already said that they are voting against it. Now, the significance of this is basically like a vote of non-confidence. If they don't vote in favor of the throne speech, so if they vote against it, it would trigger an election. So this is voting, it's a different way of doing a vote of non-confidence. So the NDP is going to vote against it. The Conservatives are obviously going to vote against it. Now, you might be wondering, well, who else needs to vote for it? The Bloc Québécois needs to vote against it. And the Bloc is not happy with Mark Carney or the Liberals because of the pipeline that's supposed to go through Quebec. And they keep saying, no, we don't want the pipeline. So you could very well see a vote of non-confidence happen successfully, literally today after question period. So those that are tuning in, this ain't no clickbait stuff. This is real. Put some L's down in the chat for this chick.
Let me begin by thanking the good people of Burlington for electing me to a fourth consecutive. It is a real privilege to be their voice and stand for them in this place. Speaking of the good people of Burlington, it brings me tremendous pride to highlight Kirthana Srinivasan, a grade 12 student at Aldershot High School. Kirthana won first place in Samsung Canada's Solve for Tomorrow contest. Her system analysis and reporting for advanced hardware is an innovative algorithm designed to detect and locate faults in large-scale solar farms, significantly reducing downtime and improving the efficiency of renewable energy systems. Her project is a powerful example of how youth are using their creativity and skills to build a better future for us all. Wow. Congratulations to Kirthana and the entire Aldershot High School team.
Oral questions. Questions orales. Honorable Andrew Scheer.
Let's be clear. Trump's tariffs on Canada are wrong, unjustified, and attack on our workers and our economy. Now, while other countries have got deals to lower their tariffs, not only has the PM failed to do that, but he's got Canada's tariffs doubled on steel and aluminum. He promised he was the man with the plan. He can't even get a deal. Our workers are terrified about losing their jobs, and he promised that he'd collect $20 billion in retaliatory tariffs, but then secretly drop those tariffs to zero during the campaign. If he's so sure that he's still going to collect $20 billion, why not table a budget and prove it to Canadians?
There you go. Give us the budget, man.
Mr. Speaker, the American tariffs, the new tariffs on steel and aluminum, are unlawful, unjustified, and illogical. I agree with the member. And that is why, one of the reasons why we have retaliatory tariffs on over $90 billion worth of U.S. goods. We are in intensive negotiations with the Americans and in parallel preparing reprisals if those negotiations do not succeed.
Wow, he sucks at question period.
Well, one way to deal with the Americans is from a position of strength. But now the Prime Minister is saying that he won't even approve a new pipeline unless there is consensus. This is already unraveling. The radical BC Premier says no pipeline through his province. There's not even consensus in the Liberal cabinet, with top ministers committed to killing oil and gas projects. The vast majority of Canadians don't want to give a veto to politicians. They want to be less dependent on the Americans and to earn more powerful paychecks from selling our oil and gas around the world. Will the Prime Minister show some leadership and commit to approving a pipeline today?
Well said. Put some W's down for Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians from Shawinigan to Saskatoon and the premiers and Prime Minister that represent them have agreed on the importance of building projects of national interest. The consensus that's required includes a consensus with Indigenous peoples, something that the members opposite do not want. We will stand with Indigenous Canadians. We will build pipelines, energy infrastructure in the future of this great country.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
If photo ops and phony rhetoric things done in this country, then Justin Trudeau would still be Prime Minister.
Yup.
But in all seriousness, the Liberals' $500 billion in new spending without a budget will make inflation worse. The PM said that he wants to be judged by prices at the grocery store. So let's look at those prices. The verdict is in. Beef up 34%, apples up 18%, coffee up 9%. Will the Prime Minister listen to Parliament and table a budget that controls spending, lowers taxes, and cuts inflation so Canadians can afford to put food on the table?
There you go, man.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased for the first time to hear the members opposite talk about lowering taxes.
That's right.
In front of this House. First time in my hearing. First time in my hearing, Mr. Speaker. Before the House is a tax cut for 22 million Canadians up to $840. They want their support.
Dude, he
The honourable
sucks at
member
question
for
period.
Bellechasse, Chemin-Lévis. This House requires a budget from this Liberal government. They approved $500 million in new inflationary spending without tabling a budget. They have broken their promise to limit spending and have increased it by 8%. Meanwhile, missed mortgage payments are hitting record highs, and food banks are increasingly overwhelmed. Can the Liberals respect this House motion and table a budget right now? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the bill that is before this House is one that will reduce taxes for the middle class. For 22 million Canadians, they need to support it. The honourable member for Bellechasse, Chemin-Lévis. Prices have skyrocketed. Beef tenderloin is up 34%, origins up 26%, rice up 14%, and even infant formula is up 9%. And after 10 years under these Liberals, families are eating less and less well and are increasingly turning to food banks. And now the Liberals want to spend another $500 million with no budget or plan. Do they realize, well, they need to table a budget to reduce inflation and lower taxes so Canadians can finally put food on the table? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, what is before this House is an increase in transfers for health of 5%. Spending for supporting seniors, we have to vote for this. And a tax cut and a GST cut for new homes as well. The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was elected by promising that he would stand up to President Trump. And then he said he was the man with a plan for this trade wall. Yet, aluminum, an important sector for Saguenay, has been hit by unjustified tariffs of 50%. And we know the Liberals. They say one thing, but they can't deliver the goods. Mr. Speaker, was the Prime Minister's entire election campaign just a political spectacle? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Absolutely, it's a political spectacle.
Mr. Speaker, the U.S. tariffs are illegal and unjustified. They're absolutely illogical, clearly. We are in negotiations, intense negotiations with the Americans, and at the same time, we are preparing our reprisals with respect to aluminum. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker.
Here we go.
Since this government was elected, has dreamed of a bill for big national projects. But in the meantime, what we stopped talking about since the election was the fact that President Trump was doubling tariffs on aluminum and on steel, threatening thousands of jobs. What will this government do? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, We need to do several things at the same time. First, we have to build our economy, build it with legislation with just one Canadian economy instead of 13. We have to build it with national projects, and we have to negotiate with the Americans. And these negotiations are at a very delicate moment right now, but we are going to win, just like the Oilers, Edmonton Oilers will. The honourable member for Bell-Chambly. Yesterday,
it's all up to the bloc, man, if we get a vote in on confidence.
Ministers said what their agenda was when they were asked questions, but the government was elected because there was a crisis. The Prime Minister even said he wouldn't be here if there was no crisis. So we have to negotiate with the Americans, yes, but we also have to immediately provide support to companies in the steel and aluminum sector. What are you doing? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'd like to remind the member that he has to ask his question through the chair. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As I've just said, we have to do several things at the same time. We are doing negotiations with the Americans, yes, of course, but at the same time, we're providing support for companies in the steel, aluminum sector with funding and support for workers and several other types of support with public supply, like the minister mentioned yesterday. The honourable member for Bell-Chambly. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, these industrial sectors in question, who we've spoken to, have not heard of any support in any way. Yet we have put forward a wage subsidy bill inspired from what we had during the pandemic. So employers are very concerned right now, and they don't want to lose expertise they have. And we're talking about dozens and thousands of jobs that are at stake. Is the Prime Minister ready to rapidly establish a wage subsidy program for companies? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have already strengthened employment insurance, and we have made a commitment to give all of the money raised from counter tariffs to the workers and the companies most affected by these unjustified and illegal U.S. tariffs.
The honourable member for Middlesex, London.
Trump's 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum are wrong and an unjustified attack on our Canadian economy. This means that manufacturers in Middlesex, London are cutting shifts, delaying investment, and relocating to the U.S. These tariffs are a direct threat to Canadian jobs and our economic sovereignty. He promised Canadians he would defend us. He said he had a plan. But in responding to the U.S., this Prime Minister's elbows have gone limp. So I asked the Prime Minister, was the entire Liberal campaign just theatre? Yeah.
Where's the elbows up?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Speaker, I would agree with the colleague. It's wrong. It's very wrong. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, we had one of our colleagues in Washington yesterday to fight for Canadians, to fight for our workers, to fight for our industry. This is not theater. This is action, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we know what makes a difference is to fight, to protect our workers, to protect our industry, and to build this Canada with Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, Canadian workers. Mr. Speaker, we're going to build Canada strong together.
The honourable member for Middlesex, London.
Canadians don't need more photo ops. They need somebody to fight for them and actually get results. During the campaign, Trump actually endorsed the Liberal Prime Minister, and it's no wonder why. The Prime Minister said his government would collect $20 billion from U.S. tariffs. That was his big talking point. But when the pressure came, he went to his friend Trump and quietly dropped all those tariffs, leaving our steel and aluminum workers blindsided and betrayed. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Liberals listen to Parliament, be transparent, and table a budget so that Canadians can see how much, if anything, was ever collected from the so-called elbows-up tariffs?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, instead of talking down Canada, Canada, she should be elbow up with us, Mr. Speaker. This is about making sure that as
She's not talking down Canada.
this House should stand united, Mr. Speaker. This is about our nation. We're fighting a trade war. Everyone in this House have a responsibility to fight for Canadian workers, fight for Canadian industry, to build Canada strong. Mr. Speaker, we get it on this side of the House. I hope on the other side they get it because Canadians get it at home.
Oh, give me a break.
Niagara South. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister promised that it would be nothing but elbows up during the election campaign. Then he paused our counter tariffs and said he didn't think the U.S. would impose any more. Now the tariffs have only gotten worse. Canadian Steel now faces 50% tariff threat from President Trump. Algoma Steel is warning that its U.S. business may become unviable. Thousands of jobs, including many in my riding of Hamilton and Niagara area, are at risk. If the Prime Minister has gone soft, what was the entire Liberal campaign based on? Just theatre?
Justin Theatre.
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
The members' riding are extremely important, and I look forward to working with him to make sure that they're safe and protected. And we should all be working together as people across the country are looking at this government and these politicians, because this trade war that was launched against Canada is existential, and it is putting livelihoods of thousands of Canadians at risk. So that's why we have a plan. We will fight, we will protect, and we will build, Mr. Speaker.
Hey, if you clap a couple more times, Jolie, you get your point across more.
Arthabasca. Mr. Speaker, Trump's tariffs are unjustified to our Canadian workers. The Prime Minister said during his election campaign that he would collect $20 billion from the U.S., but he secretly abandoned these tariffs. And this morning it was a brutal wake-up call. Aluminum and steel workers and their families are extremely worried. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister look at workers and their families and tell them how much money they have actually received in tariffs and how much they can get?
Dude, that's a fair question. How much money have we received from the tariffs?
It would be a great pleasure to look at people in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, because I was there often, because people there know there will always be there for aluminum workers. Mr. Speaker, like the Prime Minister has said, all of the funds raised from these retaliatory tariffs will be given to these workers, and this money will be reinvested to help our workers. People in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean know that we'll be there for them. We were there last year, and we'll be there today and tomorrow as well.
Member for Thornhill.
Canadians will hold account by their experiences at the grocery store. Those are the words of the Prime Minister. So let's see what the new stats say about his performance. Since the start of 2025, the price of rice has gone up 14%, the price of potatoes 13%, the price of infant formula 9%, and beef a whopping 33% up.
It's not
by
sustainable.
that measure, he's failing miserably. The Prime Minister claimed that he had a plan for inflation, but all Canadians got was another $500 billion of spending with no budget. So where is it?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Does he not want to answer in English? Where's the translator, bro? They muted the feed. You can hear the translator picking her nose. Okay, let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, here's what's going on. The Conservatives are lying, and you just have to believe us because we know what's best, and that's what Canadians voted for. Elbows are up, is what I'm assuming he said. Bro, the translator muted the feed. They still have it on the freaking translator's table. What is going on? Can you hear the translator? Like every now and then you hear like a coffee mug being moved. Or am I tripping out?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation,
Mr. Speaker, and we have reduced the use of consultants to answer the first part of our questions, and we are working on a strong mandate to make government more efficient so that we can deliver more for Canadians, which is exactly what we're doing with a tax cut, Mr. Speaker, for 22 million Canadians. I'm hoping Conservatives can rally behind this very common sense idea. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
That's so dumb.
When mothers go grocery shopping, it's about their kids. They would rather go hungry than see them go without. In Newmarket, I met a mother of 3 little boys in tears. She didn't know what she was going to feed them the following week. And who can blame her? 2 bags of groceries now cost $100 and barely last 2 days. The Liberals' inflation is the slow undoing of a family's dignity. Yet the Liberals plan to continue their inflationary spending. Will they present a budget this spring and reduce spending, or will they continue to ask parents to pay for their broken promises?
Dude, I'm literally intermittent fasting so my kids can eat. I mean, one meal a day.
Mr. Speaker, nobody should go hungry in this country, and that's why we've taken extraordinary measures to support families, just like the member's constituents that she spoke about. Since 2015, Mr. Speaker, child poverty is down by 38%. We've got a ways to go, but we've got to continue working together to get the full benefits of this work.
The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot-Acton. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers were repeatedly told during the elections to vote Liberal because their leader had super negotiating powers that would neutralize Trump. Now, we've seen how that worked out today. Yes, applaud. Trump has doubled tariffs on aluminum and steel. The Bloc has said it before. We need to provide funds to these industries and redistribute the counter-tariff funds to them. We also have to prepare in advance a wage subsidy in the event of layoffs. Aluminum and steel have been subject to tariffs for 3 months, and now they've just doubled. Will Audley finally announce support? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, I spoke with the managers of Rio Tinto and Alouette, amongst others, yesterday evening, and we are here to support our aluminum sector companies. The Minister of Finance has also had many conversations, and we know how important aluminum is for Quebec. We know how important the workers in this industry are fundamental, and that is why I spoke to Magali Picard earlier today from the FTQ, and I was also in contact with Unifor and Metalo, and we're continuing our work. Thank you. The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot-Acton. Mr. Speaker, we don't want to know with who the minister had dinner yesterday. We want to know what she's doing today. Aluminum and steel have been subject to tariffs for 3 months, and for 3 months, Ottawa has offered nothing to help them. The PM's negotiations have yielded nothing, and the tariffs have even doubled. So today, they need cash and a wage subsidy to guarantee that Quebecers won't be laid off. What is Ottawa waiting for to support our industries and protect our workers? The Honourable Minister of Canada-US Trade. Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, our government even acted before the election to support workers across Canada, the ones that were affected by these illegal and unjust tariffs imposed by the United States. The Prime Minister has clearly said we are negotiating a new safety and economic agreement with the United States, and we have a mandate to protect our industries and to protect our workers, and that's exactly what our government is doing.
The Prime Minister said there would only be pipelines if there was consensus. As it turns out, BC's Premier has said no. Several Liberal MPs are opposed, and even within the Prime Minister's own head, there seems to be opposition, because on the one hand, he says, yes, we're going to go ahead and become the energy superpower, and on the other hand, he says, no, oil needs to stay in the ground. The Prime Minister clearly has no plan to get things done, so why is he putting his elbows down and making us beholden to the United States of America?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, what we saw on Monday were 13 provinces and territories working together to build the strongest economy in the G7. The premiers and the government are focused on building a strong Canadian economy. What we we see from my colleagues across the floor are attempts to divide and to block development. I hope Conservatives will join with us in building a strong Canada.
The honourable member for Lethbridge.
Non-answer that has become accustomed to these Liberals. Grand gestures, meetings and press conferences will not get things done, even though the Prime Minister seems to believe that's the case. But what would move things forward, of course, is a plan to scrap Bill C-69, the No New Pipelines Act, a plan to scrap Bill C-48, a plan to scrap the job-killing oil and gas cap that exists. The industrial carbon tax, let's get rid of that as well. Is the Prime Minister simply turning a blind eye to these things, or does he just not know how to get things done?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
If my honourable colleague was listening to what happened in Saskatoon, the premiers and the Prime Minister have a plan to fast-track projects, to get projects done within 2 years, and to build the strongest economy in the G7. Why don't you guys get on? Why don't my colleagues get on board?
The honourable member for Central Newfoundland.
Oh, here we go.
Mr. Speaker, no consensus. That's reality this week on getting Western oil and gas to Tidewater. There is consensus in Newfoundland and Labrador today, where the VOCM poll shows 74% agree that the Liberal oil and gas cap is an investment killer. No pipelines are required to get Newfoundland and Labrador's 2.5 billion barrels of oil to world markets, or its 12.5 trillion cubic feet of gas to Tidewater. It's already there. So will the Prime Minister put his money where his mouth is and get rid of his investment-killing cap and bring prosperity back to the Atlantic Canadian oil and gas patch?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
We will build and protect our economy
Come
from
on,
American
dork, stop
tariffs
reading off
and
your
win the
paper.
trade war. But to find new markets for Canadian energy, emissions in every barrel of oil must be reduced. Serious investment in carbon capture must happen. We will build the strongest low-cost, low-risk, low-carbon economy in the G7.
The honourable member for Regina Louvain.
That sounds like a hard no to me. Saskatchewan people want to build pipelines. To secure and grow Canada's economy, we must develop a world-class energy sector. The anti-energy NDP Premier BC has stated there will be no new pipelines in BC. Anti-development extremists in the Prime Minister's cabinet have dedicated their careers to keeping Canadian oil and gas in the ground, like the Heritage Minister, like the Environment Minister. If this Prime Minister can't get consensus within his own cabinet, how will we ever get a pipeline built in our country?
Right? It's never going to happen with these weak liberals.
Again, I would say they need to go, my honourable colleagues need to look at the tapes. The Premier of Saskatchewan was supportive. The Premier of Alberta was supportive. The representative from British Columbia was supportive.
The representative. The Premier's not supportive.
Help us build the strongest economy in the G7.
David Eby, the man who has a crush on me, is not supportive.
Cardston Warner.
The Prime Minister and his energy minister say there will be no pipelines without a consensus, but buzzwords don't build pipelines. How is consensus realistic when the BC's NDP Premier has already ruled out a new pipeline? There's currently no proponent for an eastern pipeline, and the Prime Minister himself calls for Canada to be an energy superpower one day, and the next day insists that half the other reserves need to stay in the ground. Half of the PM's own cabinet wanted to see Canada's oil industries die and spent the past decade trying to kill it. If the Prime Minister can't find consensus within his own cabinet, how does he plan to approve a pipeline?
Exactly.
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Again, we've answered this question.
No, you haven't, bro.
Premier Moe said it was the best meeting he has been to as a Premier. Best First Minister's meeting. Premier Smith said it was we have an opportunity for a grand bargain. Why don't you help us get to the grand bargain?
I'll remind the Honourable Minister to go through the chair.
That's an
Honourable member for Vancouver Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, last week my hometown of Vancouver hosted North America's first Web Summit, an event highlighted Canada's vibrant tech sector and its its potential on the global stage. This conference brought together leading innovators and investors from around the world, underscoring the significant opportunities for growth in our AI ecosystem. Will the Minister of Artificial Intelligence share with this House how the government plans to solidify Canada's position as a global leader in tech and attract more investment and talent to our country?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Well, I thank my colleague for the question. Let me first also take this opportunity to thank the people of Toronto Centre for placing their trust in me as their MP. I also want to thank my volunteers and my family for their support. Monsieur le Président, we are very happy to support the Web Summit in Vancouver. It reinforces our commitment to keep Canada's world-class AI system and ecosystem strong, safe, and sovereign. Just last week, we saw 2 Canadian companies announce billions of dollars in new investments to build 8 new AI data centers from Kamloops to Rimouski. We are building the economy of the future right now.
There you go. The Honourable Member for Kenora, Kiiwettuning.
According to the Liberals' own report, nearly half of first-time home buyers feel that they're paying too much for their home, and 63% are concerned about the possibility of defaulting on their mortgage payments, Mr. Speaker, citing interest rates, the cost of living, and reduced income as reasons why. And this is the direct result of 10 years of this Liberal plan in action, Mr. Speaker, and it's why Canadians deserve to see a plan to fix it now. So on what date will the Liberals table a budget, including a plan for housing, so that Canadians can afford to have a roof over their heads?
There you go, man. Put some W's down.
Housing and infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, to the member opposite, you'll have an opportunity to support a GST cut for first-time home buyers that is in front of us right now. We look forward to your support on that and giving new home buyers a $50,000 break on their purchases up to $1 million. We look forward to your support on that and your support on the cut to income taxes for 22 million Canadians so they can afford housing more.
That's an excellent point.
That's an excellent point.
The minister wants to pretend that all is going well, but the facts from his own department show that first-time home buyers are struggling. 60% have difficulty maintaining their debt payments, Mr. Speaker, but that is not all. Recently, TD Bank has cast doubt on the Liberal promise to build more homes, stating that new home starts are actually going to decline next year, Mr. Speaker. Housing starts go down, the prices go up, and we have yet another failed Liberal promise. So I will ask again, on what date will we see a federal budget that includes a plan for housing so that Canadians can afford a home?
Yeah. Put some W's down. We need that budget.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, our housing challenges have built up over several decades. Certainly the decade of inaction from the Conservative government. We are taking action. This new government in Canada is focused on delivering on housing, up to 500,000 housing starts. That's using every tool in the toolbox, starting with a break on GST, starting with the important moves that we're making to create Build Canada homes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Elgin St. Thomas, London South. Mr. Speaker, the picture for first-time homebuyers is very grim right now. 63%, nearly two-thirds, fear they're going to default because of rising costs and rising interest rates that have happened on this Liberal government's watch. 26% are using debt and credit to pay off debt. Now, Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister may not know you have to pay off debt, but ordinary Canadians do. Canadians deserve a plan. Canadians deserve a budget that puts housing first. Now, this government needs to listen to Parliament, listen to Canadians, and deliver a budget so Canadians can put a roof on their head, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister for Housing and Infrastructure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I think Canadians spoke loud and clear in electing members to this side of the House to deliver on housing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
The new government has put forward the most aggressive plan to build affordable housing that this country's ever seen, and it starts today with a break on GST for new home buyers.
Excellent. Yes, excellent.
Member for Edmonton, Manning.
Mr. Speaker, TD Bank says the Prime Minister housing policy promises aren't enough for the federal government to reach its goal of 500,000 new units annually over the next decade. In fact, housing starts are expected to decline next year. His proposed new bureaucracy won't build any homes. There is too much red tape. Canadians deserve better. When will the government table a budget so Canadians can learn if they have any plan to put a roof over their head?
Not a boy, man.
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we have a number of action steps in play right now, as I have answered repeatedly in this House, on a cut to the GST for new home buyers. We're going to take action as well on the income tax and reducing that for 22 million Canadians. These are affordability measures that are for right now. Build Canada Homes is on the way in to bring us a huge number of new affordable homes, and I hope the members opposite will support these efforts.
Great answer.
L'honorable député de Montmorency-Charlevoix.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Un récent...
The honourable member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Well, Mr. Speaker, a recent CMHC poll shows that 63% of new home buyers are concerned that they may default on their mortgage shortly, mostly because of the increase in the cost of living, the increase in mortgage rates, and the worsening of the economic situation. People in Montmorency, Charlevoix, and elsewhere in Canada are taking out debt in order to pay off other debts. So, Mr. Speaker, can we finally get a budget so that Canadians can actually budget for their own future? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Well, Mr. Speaker, there will indeed be a budget. But the first thing this government brought forward is an affordability plan. And people in Charlevoix are interested in that. Why? Because they know that there will be a tax cut. That's great news for people in Charlevoix. And there's more good news. For first-time home buyers of a new home, they will not be seeing any GST on this new home up to $1 million. These are concrete measures that will help people. Conservatives should be delighted that this Liberal government is helping people.
Member for Caribou, Prince George.
In my hometown of Williams Lake, with a population of 10,000, 6 prolific offenders commit 98% of the crime. When they're in jail, crime rate goes down. When they're out on the streets, crime rate goes up. Businesses can't even get the mandatory insurance anymore due to high rates of vandalism. On top of this, our communities are faced with an out-of-control overdose crisis. Last week, Williams Lake saw an average of 20 to 30 overdoses per day. If he's the man with a plan, will the Prime Minister rise today and tell us what his plan is to confront the overdose crisis, lock up repeat offenders, and make our communities safe?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
They'll be using the chat, huh, for Uncle Todd?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our plan to keep communities safe will keep drugs, guns, and criminals off our streets. As the first bill that's to be debated tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, will be the Borders Bill, and we're expecting that the Conservative Party will support it in order for us to keep fentanyl off our streets, guns off our streets, make sure that illicit fundraising is curtailed, and to ensure that our communities are safer. If they want to put their action behind their talk, it is time for them to act and support this bill and get this through Parliament, Mr. Speaker.
Member for York Centre.
Last night in North Toronto, a man was shot to death and at least 5 others were wounded. 3 masked men opened gunfire steps away from the Yorkdale Mall. It's not clear if or how many bystanders were hit. The Liberal record on crime is no accident. Liberal Bills C5 and C75 put repeat criminals back on the streets, unleashing crime and chaos on the streets of Toronto. Gun crimes more than doubled under the Liberals. The solution is simple. Repeal soft-on-crime Liberal laws. When will the Liberals get serious about deadly shootings in Toronto and across Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I'm deeply saddened by the news coming out of the City of Toronto this morning. The gun violence is unacceptable and perpetrators must be brought to justice. We're partnering with police services across the country to fight organized crime and disrupt firearm smuggling and trafficking operations. The Strong Borders Act, introduced in this House yesterday, includes provisions to crack down on illegal firearms and organized crime. I look forward to working with the member opposite towards passing this important legislation, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to work tirelessly to support police across Canada.
The Honourable Member for Vernon Lake Country, Monashee.
Mr. Speaker, as a former City Councillor on the front lines of this emergency, I watched from 2015 to today as Liberal policies simply made the opioid crisis worse. Each new policy just makes things worse.
That's right.
Decriminalization isn't a case of not doing enough, it's a case of doing too much of the wrong thing. Conservatives are calling for life sentences for fentanyl kingpins committing mass murder. When will this Liberal government recognize that Canadians battling addictions are worth fighting for? When will it stop enabling harm and start supporting real recovery instead of palliative care?
Great question. The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the fentanyl crisis has impacted communities across Canada and across North America.
What are you doing about
We're
it then,
accelerating
Gary?
the work to crack down and dismantle the fentanyl trade and organized crime groups that profit from it. That's why we listed 7 cartels as terrorist entities under the criminal code. I'm working closely with Kevin Brasseau, Canada's fentanyl czar, at home and abroad to put a laser-sharp focus on dismantling fentanyl. We will
But don't worry, guys, he's
those
got it figured
profiting
out.
from this drug behind bars. Mr. Speaker, we expect the border bill, support for the border bill from my friend opposite and across the aisle. This is a very important.
He's got it all figured out. Don't worry, everybody.
The Honourable Member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, last week in Cambridge, police arrested 2 individuals at the Galt bus terminal and seized 10 grams of suspected fentanyl, enough to cause up to 5,000 deaths. Police are doing their part, but this Liberal government's soft-on-crime policies are letting drug kingpins get away with mass murder. Conservatives are calling for life sentences for those convicted of trafficking more than 40 milligrams of fentanyl. When will this Liberal government treat fentanyl like the deadly weapon it is and make those who profit from it face real consequences?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the first measures that this new government has taken is presenting a Stronger Borders Act. This is cracking down on fentanyl, auto theft, money laundering, illegal firearms, irregular migration, and organized crime. Mr. Speaker, we'll also make it tougher for violent criminals to get bail and impose stricter sentences on repeat offenders. We'll work until violent criminals are put behind bars. This government will do everything it takes to make Canadians safe.
Yeah, no, they've got it figured out. Crime is totally under control.
The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, before my election, I had the privilege of being Canada's ambassador to the OECD. And I saw there that the rules-based international system creates outcomes for workers, improves affordability for consumers, and helps businesses to innovate and grow. The rest of the world needs what Canada has to offer. But the free trade system that we had counted on is now under threat. Recently, President Trump brought up tariffs on steel and aluminum to 50%. The Minister of Industry has told us that she's very engaged with businesses and unions. So I would like to ask the Minister to tell us about this.
L'Honorable Ministre de l'Industrie.
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Ugh.
I'd like to thank my colleague for her important question and for her hard work in Thérèse de Blainville. It goes without saying that we are currently in a trade war. And we believe that these tariffs are completely unacceptable, illegal, and unjustified. That's why we're in solutions mode. And we will invest in major national projects that will create jobs throughout the country, including in steel and aluminum.
And consultants.
We will also diversify our markets to ensure that Canadian steel and aluminum can be sold elsewhere in the world.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
The Prime Minister said that we should judge him by the prices at the grocery store. Well, beef prices, apples, rice, infant formula, so many things are all up in price. Well, do you know what else is up? It's food bank use. Now, Canadians have to budget, especially during hard times, and that's exactly what they expected from the self-described man with the plan. Canadians need to see a budget from this Liberal government so that they can see what the plan is to reverse 10 years of Liberal tax increases and the effects of their inflationary spending. When will we see a budget?
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure my colleague will be happy because we're actually reducing tax for 22 million Canadians. I'm sure he's going to rejoice this evening because tomorrow or in the coming days he will have the opportunity to put his vote where his mouth is, Mr. Speaker, because he wants to support reducing taxes. Well, we'll give him a great opportunity to vote for reducing tax for 22 million Canadians. I know Canadians are going to be watching at at home. We're going to be watching on this side of the aisle to make sure he does the right thing for Canadians.
Hey, if you haven't yet already, hit that like button, folks. It's free to do.
It was this Prime Minister that said that the metric that he should be judged by is the price of food at grocery stores. And prices are up, and so is food bank use. And we have been calling relentlessly for them to put a budget in front of this House. And in fact, Parliament has spoken and has said that this Prime Minister must put a budget forward this spring. So the Prime Minister hasn't delivered on his promise to lower food prices or deliver affordable food. Will he at least respect the will of Parliament, respect the majority of members in this House who have called on him to produce a budget so we can see that plan?
Hey, they're working so tirelessly for us
Mr. Speaker, we
that they're
take
taking the
note
summer
of the
break
vote of
off.
Parliament, but in fact, the people in his riding and my folks from Shawinigan will be watching to make sure that the Conservative are actually voting in line with their values, Mr. Speaker, because next, in the coming days, they will have this great opportunity. We're giving them a golden opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to show to Canadians that they care, that they want to reduce their taxes, that they want to help 22 million Canadians. We're all going to be watching if they're going to do the right thing. We certainly hope so, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Edmonton Southeast.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are getting crushed at the grocery store. Food inflation since the start of this year is out of control. Beef is up by 34%. Oranges are up by 26%, and the list goes on. 10 years of liberal inflationary deficit have record number of Canadians going into food banks. Single mothers watering down milk for their kids. Canadians eating less nutritious food. Liberals now increasing spending by 8%, which they promised at 2%. Will they table a budget that will actually reduce inflation so Canadians can afford to feed their...
Good job.
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, since 2015, we've seen a significant decrease, not only in child poverty, but in youth poverty, in seniors poverty. That means, Mr. Speaker, that the measures that we're putting into place to support Canadians, whether it's the Canada Child Benefit or dental care, Mr. Speaker, whether it's affordable child care across this country, Mr. Speaker, it's working for Canadian families. Of course we need to do more. Of course we need to stand up to the United States, and we'll do that, as my colleagues have outlined. But these Conservatives need to get on board and be part of the solution.
Honourable Member for Spadina Harbourfront.
Mr. Speaker, my waterfront riding of Spadina Harbourfront in downtown Toronto is proud to host many Canadian Armed Force members, from the Army to the Air Forces to the Navy. Every year, about 8,200 members are released from the Canadian Armed Forces, and roughly half of them are looking to start new careers. Can the Minister of Veterans Affairs share with us how the National Veterans Employment Strategy is supporting veterans who are seeking new career opportunities?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, as the Minister of Veterans Affairs, it's an honour to answer my first question here in the House.
Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you to my honourable colleague for the question. The National Veterans Employment Strategy focuses on connecting veterans to good jobs, expanding access to skills training, and supporting entrepreneurship. It also recognizes veteran-ready employers and strengthens hiring in the public service. I'm proud to build more opportunities for our veterans.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, Donald Trump brought in 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum. This is a frontal attack on our economy and Canadian workers. I spoke this morning with 2 steel producers in my riding, and we can see that the effects of these tariffs will be devastating. $200 million will be lost in trade with the U.S. Hundreds of jobs are at stake. This Prime Minister during the campaign said that he would stand up to President Trump, but now the Liberal government isn't doing anything. What would this Prime Minister say to the constituents of Beauce who are very worried about this? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I fully understand and respect my colleague's point of view, and that's why I will be very pleased to work with him in order to help the Beauce businesses he mentioned. We are preparing funds to help these businesses. Let's work together together, let's stand up to the American government, which is bringing in these illegal, unjustified tariffs.
For Saanich, Gulf Islands.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I was going to ask the Prime Minister a question about nation-building projects, but then today Tina called our office, and she got my Chief of Staff on the phone and started explaining that she's a mom with disabilities, and she can't figure out how she's going to feed her children, and she started crying on the phone. And so here's a nation-building project question. Checks start going to Canadians with disabilities in July, but they're a lousy maxed out at $200 a month. How about a nation-building project to lift all Canadians with disabilities out of poverty?
Then stop propping up the Liberals. Come on, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the member opposite for having such compassion for the constituents in her riding, as we do all across the country. People who are living with disabilities have the right to be fully included in community. They have the right to live decent lives, just like the rest of us. That's why this government is proceeding with the Canada Disability Credit. That's why we are also working with provinces and territories, including most recently Ontario, to commit to ensuring that that money will not be clawed back from other benefits.
You know that money that you voted to send to Ukraine?
And that concludes today's question period. I'll give members a moment to leave if they have to before we go to daily routine of business.
All right, so from my understanding, what they're going to be doing now, if not very shortly, as per the schedule, is a vote on the throne speech, which is ultimately, a vote of non-confidence. So if there is a successful vote against the throne speech, which the NDP has already said that they would be voting against, the Conservatives, we know, are going to vote against it. So it ultimately comes down to the Bloc. The Green Party doesn't have enough votes to make a difference. If the Bloc votes against the throne speech, that's equal to a vote of non-confidence, and it triggers an election that would happen during the summertime. Could this happen? Absolutely. The Bloc ain't happy with the Liberals. I mean, they don't want a pipeline. They want money. They don't want a pipeline. NDP has already said that they want to vote against the throne speech because they are not seeing a budget. They want to see a budget, and they're also seeing not stuff for healthcare, pharmacare, all that good stuff that they've always been very pro. So right now, all the power is in the Bloc's hands, which is crazy to me, absolutely crazy. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how this does play out. But again, I mean, is a throne speech going to happen? Is it not going to happen? We're just going to have to wait and see. It is scheduled, though, to take place today. It is. So let's see what's going on. They're doing statements by ministers. They're going to sit tight and see
from interparliamentary delegations.
Presenting reports from committees. Introduction of private members' bills.
Mr. Baker, seconded by Mr. Maloney, moves for leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting Ukrainian Heritage Month. This motion is deemed adopted. The honourable member for Etobicoke Centre.
You got to go through a little bit of
Speaker, I rise today to reintroduce
stuff,
a bill
and then I believe they're doing the vote.
Act Respecting Ukrainian Heritage Month. If passed, it would declare September of every year Ukrainian Heritage Month across Canada. I'd like to thank the member for Etobicoke Lakeshore for co-sponsoring this bill with me, and I hope that members on all sides of the House support it. The first Ukrainian immigrants to Canada came to Canada on September 7th, 1891. Today, there are over 1.3 million Ukrainian Canadians, and they make important contributions every day from coast to coast to coast in all the ridings represented here that touch our political, economic, cultural, and social life. Canada was the first country to recognize Ukraine's independence in 1991. We've recognized the Holodomor as a genocide, and we continue to support the Ukrainian people in their fight for their sovereignty and territorial integrity. Ukrainian Heritage Month will give us an opportunity to celebrate Ukrainian heritage, the role that Canada has played in supporting the Ukrainian Canadians, and the role that Ukrainian Canadians play here in Canada.
Mr. Baker, seconded by Mr. Maloney, moves that the bill be now read a first time and be printed. This motion is deemed adopted. When shall the bill be read a second time?
Bro, veterans get a day. Canada gets a day. Ukraine gets a month.
Mr. John, seconded by
Pride gets
Ms.
a month.
Idlout, moves for leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Income Tax Act, Volunteer Firefighting and Search and Rescue Volunteer Tax Credit. This motion is deemed adopted. The Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni. Mr. John, seconded by...
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, just recognize the member.
I'll recognize the Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, it's a privilege to table the Volunteer Firefighter and Search and Rescue Responder Tax Credit Bill, which calls on the government to increase the tax credit for volunteer firefighters and search and rescue responders. You may be surprised to hear that most firefighters in Canada are volunteers, and across our country, 100,000 volunteer firefighters and search and rescue volunteers answer the call. They put their lives on the line to keep our communities safe. They show up for wildfires, vehicle collisions, medical emergencies, and more. While some volunteers receive an honorarium, they are not paid a living wage for their work. In the last Parliament, thanks to the advocacy of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, hundreds of communities, and over 17,000 Canadians who signed petitions in support of my previous bill, C-310, the tax credit was doubled from $3,000 to $6,000. However, that's not enough. Increasing the tax credit further would help compensate volunteers for expenses like gas and gear, as well as lost wages. It would also recognize the important contributions of these volunteers. So I extend my thanks to these everyday heroes for their sacrifice. I want to thank the member for Nunavut for seconding this bill, and I hope all members will support this bill.
Seconded by Ms. Idlout, moves that the bill be now read a first time and be printed. The motion is deemed adopted.
First reading of this bill, première lecture de ce projet de loi.
When shall the bill be read a second time? At the next sitting, at the next sitting of the House. Okay, where are we now? Introduction of private members' bills. First reading of Senate public bills. Motions. The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Okay, so it's supposed to be happening
Mr.
here
Speaker,
shortly.
there have been consultations amongst the part.
Are you kidding me?
Afraid there's not going to be unanimous consent. So I keep going now.
Yes.
Presenting petitions.
This is where
Petition number?
Peace River Westlock.
The Honourable Member for Peace River Westlock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today on behalf of concerned Canadians, especially those serving in the armed forces. These Canadians are concerned that the Liberal government is not doing enough to ensure that servicemen and women have the freedom to express their religion. They note that Canada has a strong tradition of respecting and honoring and affirming the role of faith traditions in the armed forces. These Canadians call on Parliament to affirm that the Canadian Armed Forces ought to support the freedom of servicemen and women through public prayer in keeping with the hard-won and honourable traditions of the armed forces, especially that on Remembrance Day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Presenting petitions.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of many British Columbians and certainly all the petitioners, continuing to draw attention to the perilous state of wild salmon populations.
All right. Yeah, we're going to pause her for a second here, folks. We're just going to mute her for a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the order, okay? This is what's going on. So we've done statements by members at the beginning. We've done oral questions. Now we're doing routine proceedings, orders of the day. So a little bit of, blah, 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 blah. And then we've got address and reply to the speech from the throne. That is the vote against the throne speech or for the throne speech. So we have to wait just a little bit longer before we get to that vote. And that is the equivalent of a vote on
with this side of the House so we can keep doing good things for Oshawa in the days ahead. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Oshawa.
Listen, Dr. Colin Carey is one of the hardest workers I know, and he will always...
We're back. We're back. We're back. Where'd everybody go? We're back. Hey, we got it. There we go. We got it.
Honourable Member for Shefford. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank, and it seems that we share the opinions on the housing situation. It is deplorable for Granby as well. There's a lack of housing. There are people who are homeless. But my colleague's question, well, I think in the throne speech, the Liberals clearly adopted the Conservative tone, namely a very centralizing vision of financing for housing, even though Quebec is asking for, and what I forgot it last week because everything went by so quickly.
Now we're good. Audio's good. Video's good. We're all freaking good,
to the government
man.
of Quebec, so that the cities who knows,
just my
know
mic
the most,
I can't
knows
scream.
what they need.
Every time I scream,
but
it
do you
cuts
agree
me
to
off.
transferring these sums as urgently as
That's
possible
done to protect you guys.
to Quebec and the cities so that they can take action on
We're
housing?
The Honourable Member for Oshawa.
Listen, Oshawa has elected a hometown girl and one who understands its struggles and its strengths. And I would be remiss to stand here and speak about things that I have not fully learned about. Listen, I'm here to defend our rights and freedoms and bring common sense back to government and to be a voice for the families, workers, and seniors and youth in Oshawa. I will always work to effectively bring better housing for my community, and I do wish that for all Canadians.
Good answer. The Honourable Member for Burnaby North Seymour.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it's a privilege to rise during the member opposite's first intervention in this House. Since this is my first intervention in the 45th Parliament, I would like to thank my constituents for sending me back here with an ever-increasing margin of victory.
Yeah, shut up, Beardo. Here's what we're going to do, folks. Here's what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to update everybody. So, yeah, stream crashed, overloading it, doing too many things at once, man. Too many things at once. If you didn't notice, boy, I'm posting on X. I'm posting on my other channels while we're going live. Like, we're doing a whole bunch of stuff, all right? We're doing a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, they don't call me multitasker sunshine for no reason. But it overloaded the computer. But here we are. We're back. We are back. We're ready to go. So what are we doing right now? Question period has ended, and we are now waiting for the throne speech. It is supposed to happen today. So for those that are watching the live stream, we're going to keep going until they eventually either do it or don't do it. But if you're watching this on a replay video and it isn't included afterwards, that means they chose not to do it. Okay, so that's what's happening. But if it doesn't happen today, it will happen this week because it's only Wednesday. So the throne speech is the equivalent of Mark Carney facing a vote of non-confidence. Okay, this is huge. The NDP has already said they're voting against. The Bloc had previously said that they want to give Mark Carney a full year to govern, but things change. They aren't happy. They're not getting what they want, and they're getting stuff done against them that they don't appreciate, such as a pipeline. The Bloc doesn't want they don't want the dirty pipeline going through Quebec. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It's not a dirty pipeline. We have like the highest standard, or one of the highest standards in the entire world for that stuff. So we're waiting patiently for it to happen. But again, if you're watching the video of this, then it means that it didn't happen yet so far, but it will in the coming days. So, Mark Carney could actually be ejected as Prime Minister. That's pretty huge. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to this, huh? Let's get back to the stream.
And she said, just, can I give you a hug? And honestly, it was those...
And we have to leave it at that. I'm sorry. I wish to inform the House that the volume of earpieces will now be reset.
I wish to inform the House that the volume of the earpieces will now be reset.
Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Calgary Signal Hill.
Madam Speaker, it is my honor to rise today in this chamber to speak on behalf of my neighbours and fellow residents of Calgary Signal Hill. Others in this House have commented since the beginning of this 45th Parliament that politics is a team sport, and I, for one, would not have it any other way. The Conservative team in Calgary Signal Hill is one of the best in our country, and I'm proud to be part of that team. I'm also grateful to all of the individuals who volunteered their time and energy in the general election campaign. And I say thank you to them today. I'm thinking about Joanne Burse, an amazing volunteer in our community, who together with Cynthia Williams ran our campaign office. Adrian Smith, Stuart McConkey, and Tim Wall, our sign crew.
Come on now. What's going on here?
Steve McLeod, one of the sharpest. Adrian Smith, Stuart McConkey, and Tim Wall, our sign crew. Steve McLeod, one of the sharpest minds in politics. Barb Shaw, Chang-Ping Chow, Bob McDonald.
Yeah, I need to smoke,
Mark
but we're going to keep it
Monick,
going.
Bonnie McGuinness, Kerry
Go
Wall,
for a smoke. I'll be ready.
Rick Harland, and
I'll be
others
on
who
the chat
gave
here on my
hour
phone.
after hour to knock on doors and do whatever needed to be done. And of course, Michael Smith, who kept it all on track and running smoothly. Jeff Sturzik and Myron Tatro were tremendously supportive as well, as were friends old and new who gave support in so many ways. These volunteers gave of themselves with no reward other than the betterment of our country. Perhaps an occasional cup of coffee or a Timbit, but I am mindful today of their commitment and contributions, and I will remain mindful of these things as I strive to represent them and all residents of Calgary Signal Hill in this House to the very best of my abilities. One does not venture into the challenging waters of politics without the solid support of family. I want to thank my partner in life, Michelle, for her rock-solid support of my long-held desire to enter federal politics. Taking on this important role means many days and nights apart, but she has never wavered in her support. My two children, Kristen and Alex, have likewise encouraged me to start a new career when others much smarter than me are retiring from theirs. They have believed in me as I have believed in them, and I love them for it. My daughter, Kristen, is a young scientist, presently completing her master's in biology, and Alex has recently started his career in finance. They are hardworking and passionate people, and I am so very proud of them. I also extend my thanks to Leanne for cheering me on and being a wonderful mother to our children. During the election campaign that concluded a short 5 weeks ago, I heard from many at their doorsteps of the expectation that I will be part of making our country better by working with all members of this House to obtain the best outcome for Canadians. A good idea, Mr. Speaker, is a good idea, regardless of which side of the House it arrives in. And members of this House need to focus on ensuring that the best ideas win the day. And it's working. The best ideas the Liberals have right now all came from the Conservatives. I agree with my neighbours on the need to work together, Madam Speaker, and I pledge to keep my focus on what is best for them, what is best for Canadians. Madam Speaker, Signal Hill is a shining example of the promise of Canada. In the election campaign, I met many, many proud Canadians who, because of their work in the energy industry, are living the Canadian dream. The energy industry is not just an employer, it is a means of advancement for families. While the Canadian energy sector is the lifeblood of my community, many are worried about their future under a Liberal government that tells us one day, not that long ago, that they're done with building pipelines, but then says that they want us to be an energy superpower the next day. For the last 10 years, Canada's energy sector has endured what my colleague from Calgary Heritage referred to a few years ago as a systemic attack by a government indifferent to the consequences of its decisions. When you consider that almost 90% of Canada's oil production comes from Alberta and Saskatchewan, it should surprise no one that these attacks have been taken as partisan bullying aimed at our western provinces. As a proud Canadian who loves this country from coast to coast to coast, that saddens me. Now, I've been in this House over the last number of days as assurances have been given that it is different now. But I am sure, Madam Speaker, that one can forgive the people of Calgary Signal Hill for being skeptical of this sudden about-face from a Liberal government that killed Energy East and Northern Gateway, that banned West Coast oil shipments by tanker, and that has put in place a regulatory framework for new project review that our energy industry tells us is utterly unworkable. And before the members opposite rise to tell us that promises have been made and all will be well, perhaps they need to be reminded of some of the promises the Liberal government has made that simply weren't kept. In 2015, Justin Trudeau promised electoral reform. That didn't happen. In 2019, the Liberals promised they would criminalize elder abuse. That didn't happen. In 2019, the Liberals promised to establish a dedicated agency for defense procurement. That didn't happen, and our forces continue to suffer today. In 2021, the Liberals said that they would create a new federal hub to help Canadian businesses and entrepreneurs take advantage of trade agreements that Canada is party to. That didn't happen. In 2021, the Liberals promised a $4.5 billion Canadian mental health transfer to the provinces. Didn't happen. In 2022, the Liberals promised they would establish a permanent council of economic advisors to provide independent advice to government on long-term growth. Guess what? Didn't happen. So when the Liberal government says today, don't worry, we promise to fix it, residents of Calgary Signal Hill do worry, Madam Speaker, and don't understand why this Liberal government refuses to repeal Bill C-69, refuses to repeal Bill C-48, and refuses to scrap the production cap on oil and gas. The Minister of Natural Resources recently spoke in Calgary, Madam Speaker, a prime opportunity to walk away from these three suffocating policies. But there wasn't a word. In fact, there seems to be an aversion to saying the word pipeline out loud in the Liberal government, even with thousands of kilometres of pipelines operating in Canada this very minute, safely and responsibly taking petroleum products from production to end users. Mr. Speaker, if you know, Madam Speaker, if you know somebody with a habit of over-promising and consistently under-delivering, you eventually lose faith in them saying what they mean and meaning what they say. So today the answer is no. It is not enough to make more promises. It is not enough to say, don't worry, we will do this or we will do that. My neighbours in Signal Hill require action and results, not empty promises. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I wish to take a moment to acknowledge the exemplary service of Ron Leipert, prior MP for Calgary Signal Hill. After serving as press secretary to the late and great Alberta Premier Peter Lougheed, Ron was elected to the Alberta Legislature in 2004. Ron served 3 premiers over 7+ years in that institution, acting successively as Minister of Education, Minister of Health and Wellness, Minister of Energy, and Minister of Finance. After time in the private sector, Ron was elected to this House with the class of 2015 and served the people of Calgary Signal Hill for just under 10 years. The former member is now focusing on his golf game full-time, and he does so with the thanks and appreciation of his friends and neighbours in the riding that we share. He's been an outstanding example of public service at its best, and the residents of Calgary Signal Hill join me in saying to Ron Leipert, thank you. Finally, Madam Speaker, I want to share the contents of a letter I just received from a resident of Calgary Signal Hill. Lily writes as follows. My name is Lily. I am 9 years old. I noticed that you won the election in my riding. Congratulations. I wanted to ask you to make good, kind, and fair decisions for us. Thank you. I think these words perfectly lay out the work ahead of this House and the expectation that all Canadians hold for us as parliamentarians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. L'honorable député de Fred de Madawaska-Restigouche.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le mois dernier, plus de 8,5 millions de Canadiennes et Canadiens ont voté pour notre plan ambitieux pour renforcer et unifier notre économie. C'est le plus grand nombre de votes jamais obtenus par un parti lors d'une élection fédérale canadienne. Le discours du trône reflète très bien les engagements que nous avons pris durant la campagne. Ma question pour mon collègue.
The throne speech accurately reflects the commitments made during the campaign, which 8.5 Canadians voted for, a very high amount. So my question for my colleague, will he vote for the throne speech this evening, a throne speech that reflects the wishes of a majority of Canadians?
Calgary Signal Hill.
I thank the member opposite for the question. I think what's most important right now, Madam Speaker, is what this government plans to do with respect to the energy industry, which, as I've indicated and stated in this House, is the lifeblood of my community of Calgary Signal Hill. We don't need more empty promises. We need results. We need a commitment to repeal Bill C-69. We need a commitment to repeal Bill C-48. And we need a scrapping of the production cap on oil and gas. Those are the issues that are of greatest importance in my riding, Madam Speaker, and I would invite the member opposite to make that commitment today on behalf of his party.
Honorable député de Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot-Acton.
The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot-Acton. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I closely listened to my colleague's speech. For him, he seems to feel that pipelines are an element of Canadian identity and nation building. After neglecting the matter of identity for decades, now, because of the American problem, we need to define an identity, and apparently we need to build it around a pipeline. Apparently, the idea was to threaten Alberta's separatism, but then at the Premier's meeting, hold up the pipeline as a pan-Canadian nation-building plan. So if Quebec's criteria are not met, does he agree that the pipeline will not have to cross Quebec territory?
Madam Speaker, the question of pipelines are a question of logical pursuit of projects that make sense. Yes, the energy industry is part of the culture in my part of Canada. And I would expect all parts of Canada to understand the importance of this critical industry in our country and support those industries as part of not just a way of life, but as a common sense method of funding, financing, and powering the best interests of all Canadians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I welcome the member for Signal Hill to this House. He is another Calgary MP. Great to see him here. I share his thanks to his predecessor, Ron Leipert, a good friend and known to all of us here in this House. We wish him the best in retirement. He spoke in response to the last question. I think I'd like to give him a little more time to fully explain some of the points that he might want to make there, that it's not just because in his riding and mine that the oil and gas industry, the energy industry.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So what is going on right now? Everybody that's still tuning into the reboot of the stream is waiting patiently for the throne speech debate. Now, I just got confirmation that it's not happening right now, but it is happening later this evening. So it is currently 4 p.m., just about 4 p.m. Eastern. And the Liberals did just confirm. So you can see here on my Twitter account, breaking, Liberal MP just confirmed that this confidence vote on the speech from the throne will occur this evening. This is it, folks. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to end this stream. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in right now. This was absolutely freaking incredible, but we're not going to hold off for another several hours because this could take place in like 2 hours from now. So we are going to boot back up when that vote happens. Okay. So I'm going to end the stream now. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you haven't yet already, I'd like to encourage you guys to hit the like button and subscribe. And I'll see you guys later on in a couple of hours when it happens. Okay. Just so we're all clear. Enjoy the next few hours or a couple of hours, and we'll see you back here. Turn post notifications on. Hit that little bell notification so you can actually be notified of when the stream